Hey, all. Really excited to be here with Steve Wasserman of Heyday Books. Steve, thanks so much for sitting down.
Thank you. I'm excited as well to be here with BK Fowler, the new executive director of the Bay Area Book Festival.
Excited to be in your space too. I love all of these books. And where are we sitting right now? We're
We
sitting.
are welcoming you to have this nice conversation here in, what can I call it, Heyday's lair. This is the Heyday's offices. We are surrounded by many thousands of books. I can't claim that Heyday published all these books. We have published over the last 50 years. This year we're celebrating 50 years since our founding in 1974.
Congratulations.
So, it's a golden anniversary, and this is where the staff of 12 gathers together, and where we try to dream up big ideas that result in books, small and large, that hopefully deepen civic debate over issues that matter.
Now, you also have a background in festivals, right? I mean, you worked a long time for the Los Angeles Times Book Festival.
Yes, I was back in what seems at this remove the Pleistocene era, last century. I was the editor of the Los Angeles Times Sunday Book Review section when they had such a section. They no longer do, alas. And it was I, in concert with a number of other people at the LA Times, who next year will mark 30 years since the Los Angeles Times Festival of Books was founded, which was an annual festival, still ongoing, that attracts about 150,000 people over a 2-day period, 400 authors, a great celebration of the written word.
Yeah, it's amazing. For those of you that don't know, I just started as the executive director of the Bay Area Book Festival. We are going into our 11th year, and I know that Heyday Books and you in particular have played a big role in the festival for many years. So,
well, that's a kind exaggeration. We have played a modest role in encouraging everyone we can to aid and abet the growth and expansion and deepening of a unique festival that really tries to be a kind of premier showcase for literary talent and storytelling here in the Bay Area, which is one of the most literate places in the country, but sadly had been without a festival, apart from the great Litquake, largely taking place in San Francisco, but now taking place elsewhere as well. But certainly the establishment of the Bay Area Book Festival a decade ago was really a kind of inflection point.
Yeah. And I know we also share publishing. I started in Rand Nomadic Press for 12 years, and we mostly were focused in Oakland.
Right.
And published over, I think, 110 books and tons of events that we did. And so we have a lot of things in common, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm somebody who seems to be dedicated to working every station in the publishing kitchen before I'm done. So I have had a kind of peripatetic career ping-ponging between California and New York, working at a variety of publishing houses in Manhattan for many years, Random House, Farrar, Straus and Giroux, and finally 8 years ago came back to my natal town, Berkeley, to take the helm of Heyday, whose founder, Malcolm Margolin, retired at the age of 75, less for reasons of advancing age than for biology tapping him on the shoulder in the disobliging form of Parkinson's. No. And I had always admired what he and his colleagues had done with little more than the stars on their forehead and casting pixie dust. And, here's a company that has 500 backlist books and is thriving 50 years in.
Yeah, 50 years is a great run for sure. Let's hope for 50 more. So we came together, we started talking about arts and advocacy and the role that festivals and publishers can play in that. And those are very general terms, so maybe we can start to unpack what advocacy means in the context of the arts, and in particular in the context of these vehicles, really, community-led, community-rooted vehicles that we are both employed with, Heyday and Bay Area Book Festival. What in your view is the role of the publisher? I'm going to put you on the spot. The role of the publisher in advocacy work around the stories that you publish, the books that you publish, and the authors that you
Well,
give a
Heyday
platform?
in particular, I should make it clear to those of you who are listening to us, we are in some respects limited in what we do. We do not, for instance, publish, alas, any fiction or poetry. And we might be justly criticized for somehow ignoring the music of our language, which is perhaps best heard in works of fiction and in poetry. We specialize in nonfiction, chiefly in four main areas. We champion the indigenous voices of California, the more than 100 native tribes. We publish a magazine for the last 37 years called News from Native California. So we try to amplify and augment tales of resilience and resistance that have not really had a chance to be heard in a wider community. We champion subjects having to do with social justice, equity, and enfranchisement. We preeminently celebrate and defend nature. That's an important component of what we're devoted to. And finally, we explore the very fraught and contested nature of California's history. We stand opposed to a single narrative version of that history, which is not a fixed history, and it's a many braided strand intertwined in ways that both discomfort and also give hope to people who try to find a reflection of their own evolving identities in the vast and complicated morass of California's history. So that's we try to do that. But there's certainly a role for publishers in trying to convey to a broader readership, to double down on stories told by people who haven't had a chance to tell those stories, that in the best sense both simplify and complicate the issues that so acutely press upon us all, differently depending on who you are and where you're coming from, but nonetheless in that search, both individual and collective, that we would like to aid and abet, that search for a better world in which we can all live more happily and together. Well, we think that books, that old-fashioned thing that you see all around us, play and will continue to play a outsized role far into the future. We don't think the age of the book is dead.
Is anywhere near? Yeah. One of the things that I always loved about publishing and working with authors was, I mean, at Nomadic Press, we really were intentional about the platforms that we created to give folks that were pushed to the margins traditionally the space to tell their own stories. And one of the things that I loved about handing authors, their first books, was not only that moment of recognition that they saw themselves on the page, but that when they were on the stage, other people saw them holding their book, and they saw themselves in the stories that were being told through the poetry of various folks. And I think that has a lot of power. And so I think representation right now is really, really important in the work that we do as publishers and in the publishing industry, being representative of the country that we actually live in, and giving respect and space to the stories that we live amongst and we live through every day.
I would agree up to a point, but I think that literature generally and publishers in particular have at least a twofold responsibility. On the one hand, to publish work that acts as a mirror, as you rightly say, that reflects people's sense of themselves and that provides authenticity and legitimacy. On the other hand, famously, we need to provide stories that enable people to walk in other people's shoes. Literature is the key that unlocks empathy. And so if we're to have a society in which we have a notion that embraces all of us, including people who don't look like us from wherever we came from, or don't share our class, ethnic, or gender backgrounds or preferences, we need to be able to encourage an imaginative capacity for people to imagine other lives and to do so in a way that encourages charity and empathy. And so that is also, it seems to me, a high goal. And one of the great things about these festivals is that they provide, to use a fancy term, a Greek term, they provide an agora, a space, a place, a safe space, if you will, where people from all walks of life can congregate and recognize in each other, because of their devotion to the written word and to storytelling, that we're all members of the same tribe, as it were, because that is very helpful, since reading preeminently is a very solitary activity. How many times did you ever hear as a kid growing up when some adult came to interrupt your reading and you said to them, "Leave me alone, can't you see I'm reading?" So reading is done in contrast to other distractions of the industrial entertainment complex, where you go to a sporting event, you do it with other people, go to a music event, you can do it with other people. Reading you do alone in a chair like this with a single lamp on for illumination, but you have a great yearning to not only to desire to meet the people who created these works that you're fascinated and compelled by, but also to share your experience of the work with others. And festivals provide a civic space where people from, as I say, all walks of life can come together and share that experience.
Yeah. I mean, we previously talked about this, but one of my visions for the Bay Area Book Festival in particular is that it starts to be felt as a family reunion of sorts every year, where we come together every year to talk about the work that we've done in the previous year. We plan, we strategize, we build relationships with each other, we hold each other, support networks of care, which is going to be a theme of our festival this year, and mutual aid and sort of these discussions. And then we plan the ways forward. You mentioned, that the idea of a single narrative of California, but I feel like we have looming now, probably for a while, this potential, at least it's espoused as a potential, that we are moving toward a singular narrative when we think about our national government, towards autocracy. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I don't think either of us buys into the idea that we'll ever actually get to a singular story.
Well,
and that the beauty of it actually is in the multiplicity of.
I cleave from the very inception of the settling of North America by European colonists. There have been at least two narratives that have been in contest with each other, and there's the motto "E pluribus unum," out of many one, which can be interpreted as a hope that out of many peoples a single people can be forged. Now we have endured in this country for several hundred years now the hegemony of one kind of people who sought to impose their will on others, including the enslavement of peoples, the ruthless exploitation of migrant labor, and the scenes of tremendous labor battles and other things. And we are experiencing a resurgence in this country of nativism and a kind of full-blown effort to undo the achievements of the New Deal. And we see the ascendancy of people who are in some considerable anger over the erosion of the narrative they thought had explained the country to them, and a resistance against that. But here in California especially, which was long a place for the arrival of peoples from all over the world. When you think about the gold rush, as was in the words of a famous historian about the gold rush, the world rushed in, and there were peoples from all over the world seeking, of course, to get rich quick and to figure out what did it mean to be an American. And that question is still unanswered, and the country is still in the grip of a kind of, how shall I put it, a nervous breakdown. I mean, I almost think that what has been happening is more a subject for the analysis of of psychoanalysis than it is, frankly, of political analysis.
Yeah.
Because there's a pathology in the country which eludes complete understanding. But there is a madness that's loose in the country that seems to be quite virulent, and we have a responsibility here to try to both encourage a better America, one that embraces all the strands that can actually provide unity, rather than to fan the flames of divisiveness. And I feel that very strongly. And I think certainly a commitment to the arts as one preeminent place where hope can thrive, and where dreams can be dreamed, and where people can find each other and recognize in each other a similar solidarity with things that matter most.
Yeah. Yeah. I think last time we were together, we talked about Vidal's United States of Amnesia, and how this country is so good at forgetting so quickly our distant past, but also our recent past. Just if we look from 2020 till now,
Right.
and the sort of swing right, the response that we've seen since, it gets to this, the power of narrative, which we're talking a lot about for this festival. And I know we think about it a lot as publishers. We think a lot about it as folks involved in festivals, of bringing a lot of folks together. What stories do we bring onto the stage? What stories do we invite to be shared with the folks who come through? And even though we are, again, in increasingly trying times as a country, I am heartened by the networks of care that exist, the networks of care that are once again bubbling back up in preparation for what's about to hit us in January. I'm always reminded of June Jordan's saying, and it was a poem for South African women, I think, that June Jordan wrote, which is that we are the ones that we've been waiting for. And that looking to a government body may not be the best way of thinking about how we take care of each other. That we actually are full in and of ourselves, and that we are able to build and help each other. And I think that is hopefully going to be the nature of the space that we create at the festival, and then connect with other spaces around the Bay and across California and out from there.
Well, I certainly, for me, one of the chief advantages of a festival is that it brings together people who can share ideas and collaborate and enrich each other through the many intelligences and stories that they bring to bear, because none of us alone is smart enough to figure things out.
Right.
We need each other. The risk here, though, is we should beware of the hubris of a certain kind of self-congratulation.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think there are limits to the idea of literature as therapy. I think we have to have politics as well.
Yeah.
And we have to understand that we have to be in dialogue with people who don't think like us, to challenge our received wisdoms and prejudices. I think it's always useful to examine those things. And and for many people, particularly in what is sometimes derided as the Berkeley bubble, the election on November 5th was a big wake-up call. I mean, just as the defeat of Hillary Clinton was back then, many people didn't expect it. And here in California, if you look at the election returns, you have the ill-populated Central Valley of California goes red, and yes, the coasts where most of the people live went blue. And there is a divide in the state itself, and it isn't clear to me that people in the interior of the state are really in dialogue with the people on the coast, and vice versa. And there's a lot of suspicion, there's a lot of bad faith, and so that's a big question. What can we do to build bridges? Are there common values? Are there places where alliances can be built? Are there stories that can be shared and can move people who are coming from very different places?
Yeah, Well, I mean, two things come to mind because what we're talking about is really is community, and I think something really important that I learned about this concept of community is that it doesn't mean you need to like the people you're in community with. It doesn't mean you have to agree. It's not a kumbaya moment. It's to be in community is to invite civil disagreement.
Right.
And it's through that civil disagreement that we are able to get into someone else's shoes. We're able to understand the inverse of our particular position, which might strengthen our position or might open up into other unforeseen possibilities. So I like that right now, the idea of civil disagreement feels very ripe to me.
Yeah, well, the disagreement is all about us. Whether it's civil or not
Well, this is
is really an open question.
But
I would love to encourage it. And I think a festival like the one that you're directing now offers a tremendous opportunity to do that. I mean, I remember back in 2003, on the eve of bombs falling on Baghdad, I and some others organized a coalition of groups from the Los Angeles Times to the New York Review of Books, and we put on a debate over the propriety, moral and political, of American intervention in Iraq. And we had a debate that featured Christopher Hitchens, Mark Danner, Robert Scheer, and Michael Ignatieff. I happen to have been the moderator of this thing. In front of a live audience at the Wiltern Theater, the Art Deco Theater in Los Angeles, seats 1,800 people, and Brian Lamb of C-SPAN consented to broadcast this live, much as we are being live streamed now. And we had this 2-hour debate that was seen by millions of people. Now, it didn't prevent a war, but it galvanized many, many people to consider the issues that were being raised and the actions that were about to be conducted in all of our name with a certain seriousness and rigor that the historical moment demanded.
Where do we go?
Where do we go from here? Well, the world is our oyster here. We have so many, we don't have enough time in the 2 days of the Bay Area. By the way, is it going to be 2 days this coming end of May and early June? Is it be 2 days or just 1 day?
2 days again. It's going to be May 31st and June 1st, 2025.
Great.
Launching in September, we are going to start, speaking of civil disagreement, we're going to launch hopefully a speaker series at the Henry J. Kaiser Performing Arts Center by Lake Merritt in Oakland. And that's going to hopefully feature 2 speakers on a heated subject, civilly disagreeing, and by the end maybe coming to a deeper understanding of that particular topic.
Well, in some ways the festival is a stepchild of the free speech movement. 60 years ago, in December of 1964, 800 students were arrested to fight for the right to have speech and not be punished for that advocacy. So this is in a great tradition. Couldn't be more appropriate for Berkeley in the Bay Area. And there are still many, many voices that are controversial. And I happen to be one of those people who thinks the more vigorous the debate, the better understandings can be achieved. But the civil quality of it is really an important component of it. Not the demonization of the other, not the fear of the other, but welcoming disagreements into a common and collective space where we can try to better understand what's at stake. And quite a lot is at stake, as you rightly intuit and suggest. I mean, we are really at a hinge moment in our common history.
It feels like that, it does. 2 books that you're really excited about coming out in 2025 with Heyday.
Oh God! It's a question.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah, it's a question like that now. Now, all titles of any book I ever read flee from my mind. We have wonderful books that are coming out, and gosh.
I'll let you think about it. I'll let you think. I don't want to put you on the spot like that. We have a number of people I'm really excited about for the festival. I don't think I can actually say any of them at the moment. But
Okay, well, you
hopefully,
keep your powder dry. I'll keep my powder. Suffice
yeah.
it to say, we have wonderful books coming out, and we have a forthcoming catalog of things. But I don't want to use these moments just to push my own books. I'm really interested in being a cheerleader, as it were, and to encourage all kinds of people. And if there are people listening to this and who say, we don't find in any of the publishers we look at, we don't find any representation of what we think is important. You know what? As the late Scoop Nisker, who was the news producer and newscaster on the old FM station 50 years ago, KSAN, his closing mantra was, if you don't like the news, go out and make some of your own.
Yeah.
And the great thing that has happened in the last several decades is that technology has democratized the means of production. So it is possible. If you aren't finding in a bookstore the books that you want to read, I urge you to write your own story. It is possible for a modest amount of money to create a book-like object. You
Yeah.
can have this, and knock on doors. Don't give up.
And reach out to, I would
Reach out to
say,
people.
reach out to publishers. I'll offer myself. If anyone wants to reach out, you're more than welcome to reach out, and I'll tell you all my mishaps and
Right.
all the lessons learned along the way. And there's folks that are willing to offer their expertise, so to speak.
Right. I will say a cautionary note that this is a tough racket,
Yeah.
and the main thing, the main challenge is how do we cut through the noise of the culture and get attention for deserving work?
Yeah.
So the Bay Area Book Festival is something you should support. And I don't know, do we have a little crawl thing that if you want to donate to the Bay Area Book Festival, call 1-800
We don't have that
Bay Area
yet.
Book Festival, or contact J.K. Fowler. Just go on
It's
website.
baybookfest.org. We actually are running an end of year campaign.
Good.
And so by December 31st, we're hoping to raise $100K.
Good.
As you know, festivals are not cheap to run, but nor are publishing houses. So
No.
folks should also buy books from Heyday Books and support the work that you all are doing. And
Yeah.
and I hope that this is one of many times that we do this.
Yes, and by the way, it should not be forgotten. I mean, the Trump administration is, proposing legislation which, if it carries the day, will likely deny to certain kinds of nonprofit entities. It will strip them of that nonprofit status. Now, we're all nonprofits. We rely heavily on the goodwill and generosity of other people. So, if portions of the nonprofit world, which are preeminently comprised of do-good institutions, whether it's the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, or whether it's museums, or whether it's independent publishers, or festivals, are demonized by a political, ideological tsunami that wants to destroy them. This is something that we need to be aware of, we need to push back on, and we need to aid each other.
Yeah.
And we need your help as well, because it would be a terrible thing in this country if the arts were throttled in this way, because we are the proverbial canaries in the coal mine, and we are the first line and the most vulnerable to a certain kind of attack, because our existence has always been precarious.
Yeah. Yeah, if you don't know about this bill, look it up. Probably if you Google nonprofit kill bill or something to this effect, it'll come up. And I think there's still time to contact representatives to put the word in that they should vote against this. Steve Wasserman, it's been a pleasure. Let's do this again.
J.K. Fowler, thank you.